Hey everyone, Ghostmoon here, and welcome back to my channel, Everyday Backpacker. My last video was a review of my 5-year anniversary of this channel and my time spent here on YouTube. And it was a lot of fun, and I had a lot of fun sharing that video. So I thought it would be great to just stay in that theme and do a review of one of the first ever series I did on this channel. Now my first ever series on this channel, which also was my second video ever, was a look at the gear that I was using at the time I started the channel. Now that subject made perfect sense at the beginning of my channel because, let's face it, everybody likes talking about gear, even if they say they don't. The reason why is because, in my opinion, gear is the great equalizer of all backpackers. It doesn't matter if you're a thru hiker or a weekend warrior, a newbie or a grizzled old veteran of the trail, everybody needs gear, and everybody at some level likes to talk about it. Now, of course, not everybody uses the exact same specific gear. And a lot of people love to point that out. Like a lot. Like always. But on a general level, we all need to use essentially the same types of gear. We all need some sort of shelter, some way of making food, some way of keeping ourselves dry, some way to sleep at night in that shelter, and generally something to carry all that stuff around in. And like most hikers, our gear, the stuff that we take out into the trail, does evolve over time. We switch out gear for newer gear. They keep coming out with new stuff that we feel like we have. And so over time, generally speaking, most people's kits tend to change a little bit over time. So 5 years ago, I set out to document the gear that I carried. Now at the time, I thought it would be best to break it into different topics to talk about more in depth what the things I carry, instead of just doing it all in one video that would have probably been about an hour long. And so I set out to do that. Now, like a lot of new YouTubers, I didn't finish. I actually only ended up doing 2 videos. But this turn around, we're going to do a little bit more in-depth review. So I thought it'd be fun to just take a look back at those videos and the gear that I was carrying at the time and compare it with the stuff that I carry now. See how it's changed, why it's changed, and how that has affected things like weight and ease of use. So let's hit that rewind button, warm up some of those old cringy videos, and take a look at how me and my gear have changed over the 5 years that I've been doing this little hobby. Today we're going to start a series called What's in My Pack. This is going to be a series of videos where I break down the individual items that I carry in my basic overall pack. Alright, so the first area of gear I want to focus on is the pack itself, and then a few of the items that I carry on the outside of the pack. The pack that I'm using right now is the Exos 58 by Osprey, and I just got this pack this year, and already I really love it. It's a pretty basic, nuts and bolts, no frills kind of pack. You have one main compartment. It's only top access. There's no lower zippers or anything like that. And then you have the brain compartment, which also has a small pocket underneath. Boy, that's cringy. Alright, I'll spare you all the glory details. But, as mentioned in the video, the pack that I used at that time was brand new to me, was the Exos 58 by Osprey. Over the years, this pack was a great friend on the trail. It definitely lived up to all of my expectations at the time, and I definitely got a lot of use out of it, and it's served me very well. But, ultimately, not everything lasts forever, and I did decide this last year to go ahead and switch. So of course, if it works out so well, why did I switch? Well, the main reasons I switched was I was looking for something that was a little bit smaller, because all of my other gear had started to switch by this point and had gotten a little bit smaller, and I didn't need all the extra room. And so I was looking for something that A, was a little bit smaller, and B, was a little bit more simple. And so at the beginning of last year, I made the decision to switch it out for a Waymark 50-liter light pack. So after a bunch of research and a recommendation from a friend of mine who had also switched from the Exos to this pack, I went ahead with it, and I'm really glad I did. Ultimately, I decided to go with this pack because it is very simple in its design, which is very appealing to me. Now, the biggest concern I had with switching to this pack was that it went away from having the springboard back panel with the ventilation to a much more traditional right up against the back thing. And I was concerned that lack of ventilation would be an issue. Ultimately, it wasn't. I found that my back still got sweaty either way, and I really honestly didn't notice much of a difference. What I did notice was that by having all the weight up against my back, it definitely felt a lot more comfortable, and ultimately I do think that switching over to this pack was the right decision to make.
The next thing I carry on the outside, often in my hands when I'm using them, are my trekking poles. You're going to learn over time that I'm a little bit of a blend of old school / traditional and new ultralight equipment.
That's not a thing anymore. I'm pretty much all new stuff now. I drank that Kool-Aid and it was pretty tasty. That being said, I do still carry a map and compass, and you'll get those away from me when you pry them out of my cold, dead hands. Yeah, probably because you died from being lost, you mud flap. Thanks. I'm arguing with myself again.
And this is one area that I am a little old school. I've had these poles since probably 1999 or 2000. And they're just a pair of Lecky poles. Very basic aluminum, carbide tip, rubber handle. They're nothing special, but they have been through a lot of trips with me, and they've always worked.
All right, trekking poles. Now this is one area of gear that I changed out, not because of wanting to try out something new or to upgrade, because I had those trekking poles for 20 some odd years. They worked great and I absolutely loved them. I had no intention of changing them. That was until a few months after this original video was made, when a porcupine decided that it wanted to make a meal out of my trekking poles, and it actually chewed off the handles and handle straps of my trekking poles. And so, with that in mind, I obviously needed to get a new pair of trekking poles, and so I went with a pair of also Leakies, but these are a little bit newer, and unlike the original ones, which were the tri-fold, these are the Z-fold kind. Now, at the time, my main reason for going with the Z-fold pole was because, as previous mentioned, I decided I couldn't just leave my gear out willy-nilly without it getting chewed on and going through the digestive tract of a small rodent. Sorry, little buddy. That said, I went with the Z-folds because they were easier to stow inside of the small vestibule of my tent at the time.
Bottom of my pack, I have a thermarest seat, or as one of the persons that I follow on YouTube calls it, the ass pad. And it's just a closed cell foam.
Alright, this one's pretty interesting, because that particular item in that video never appears in any of my videos ever again from that point. And that is this thing here, which is the ass pad. The reason why this one never shows up is because very shortly after doing this video, I took it out on a little trip and realized that it kinda sucked. It was not super comfortable, super lightweight, I'll give you that, but just didn't work out well for me. A lot of people like them, not this guy. So I decided to go to a Crazy Creek Hex 2.0 chair, which is what I ultimately ended up using for the rest of the 5 years or so that my channel's been going on. It's a great chair. Fairly lightweight, pretty simple, didn't take up a lot of room, worked out really great. But eventually I decided to change this out as well. So now I use this guy here. This is the Skyline Ultralight chair by Big Agnes. Now this is definitely an area where I have gone up in weight as opposed to down in weight. But that was a necessary sacrifice for my comfort, because being able to sit up off of the ground has been a game changer. But that has definitely come at a cost. When later on we'll compare the weight changes in this, and you'll see that this guy doesn't win any points there. But man, is it comfortable.
The main compartment, at the front of the compartment of the pack, I do have my camp shoes, which right now are a pair of Teva sandals with a buckle.
Alright, this next one is by far one of the best changes I ever made in my life, mainly because of all of the haters that came out of the woodwork to give me grief over it. Because I eventually got rid of those sandals and I switched them out for the infamous Crocs. And I'm still not even remotely sorry for it, because I still think these are the best camp shoes I've ever had. Super lightweight, dry quickly, work well on a stream crossing. Still absolutely one of my favorite pieces of gear. You can throw all the hate at me you want to. I love these guys.
Also in that pouch I carry my cat hole kit, or poop bag, whatever you want to call it. And it is just for that. It is what I take with me to go relieve myself in the backcountry. Of course, I have a trowel, and this one is the Deuce of Spades.
Alright, so this is an item that truly hasn't changed a whole lot, except in one really fun way. And that's the bag that I carry in it, with my Hilltop Packs custom printed poop emoji bag. But inside of this cool bag, I still pretty much have fairly similar stuff in here. I'm still using the exact same Deuce shovel that I used before and definitely still enjoying it. I still have rolled toilet paper, and I'm still using a extra Ziploc baggie to, of course, take my used toilet paper out because leave no trace is a thing. But there are also a few additions of even this basic thing that have come up over the years that I didn't have in that original video. Namely things like wipes and sanitizer and body glide for basically just keeping my life more pleasant in the backcountry. And then of course the addition of my Jericho gear driver, which I did a video recently on, and this is what allows me to kind of more easily push this shovel into the ground without hurting my hand as much. Also great for driving in sticks.
I do still use Nalgene water bottles. I have not switched over to the smart water bottles that a lot of thru hikers are using.
Oh, how the mighty have fallen.
These really aren't that much heavier, and they're pretty durable, and they're measured, so it's a lot.
So yes, after literally decades of use, I did finally retire the Nalgene bottles. Although I still have them, haven't used them since I changed over. But I did make the leap over to the Smart Water, and I'm kind of glad I did. One, I do like the flip top lids. They are very helpful. They are lighter, and they do fit better into the side pockets of my current pack. So yeah, I made the leap. Again, not really that sorry about it. Alright, so there you have it. All of the gear in that video plus the new stuff that's added has been compared and contrasted from 5 years ago to now. And so I think the next step would be to do a comparison on what clearly is the most important demographic of anybody in the backpacking community, which is weight. So in this completely non-scientific and probably not repeatable comparison, let's take a look at where the weights fall, shall we? Alright, so first up is going to be the pack. Now I'm going to do everything in ounces using one of two scales. So for the packs, I'll be using my hang scale. For the rest of it, I'll be using a regular scale there. So the old Exos 58 pack comes in at 44.6 ounces. Now that is again for the extra large frame, which in actuality is not 58 liters, but is more like 63 liters. Compare that to the weight of my Waymark Light 50. This is also going to be an extra large frame. And that one's going to come at 41.1 ounces. Not a huge saving, but it is definitely less, so I'll take it. Alright, so next up is the trekking poles. Now I don't have the old trekking poles, but they weren't exceptionally heavy or light, and neither are these, so we're going to go ahead and call this a draw. I'm just going to go ahead and measure these guys here. This set comes in at 17.9 ounces. I'm willing to bet that the other ones are very close to that, so again, we're going to call this one a draw. Alright, so next we have the seat. Now, I'm going to do 3 on this one because although I did not use this one, I did start out with it in the video, so we'll go ahead and compare and contrast. This is obviously going to be the lightest one, but this guy comes in at a whopping 1.9 ounces. Now to the one that I actually used for the last 4 years, which is going to be my Crazy Creek Hex 2.0. That bad boy comes in at a whopping 20 ounces. Now onto my current chair, the Big Agnes Skyline Ultralight chair. Not the lightest in the market, but for me one of the most comfortable ones. Hoo boy, 28.2 ounces. Well, I definitely went backwards on the scale in this gear evolution, but I think that the benefits in comfort outweigh the benefits of, well, weight. Alright, so next we have the poop kit. I found the old poop kit bag. So I'm going to use what I had in the video, which is toilet paper, the deuce of spades, and the extra thing for my used toilet paper. And this one comes in at a weight of 2.5 ounces. Compare that with the current setup with the new bag and all the extra crap I've crammed into my crap pack kit. 5.7 ounces. And lastly, we have my conversion over to the dark side of the Smart Water bottle from the old Nalgene's. Old Nalgene, 4.1 ounces. Smart Water bottle, 1.5 ounces. Definitely some weight savings there. Alright, so there you have it. Side-by-side comparison of me from 5 years ago to me now. So, how did it stack up? Well, I went ahead and added it up. I used the same weight for both poles because I don't have the other poles to compare. The bottles I did in 2 because I normally carry 2 of each. And so the total for the old system was 94.9 ounces or 5.9 pounds. And the total for the new system was 91.2 ounces or 5.7 pounds. Pretty much the same. But you know what? I'm going to go out into the area of backpacking blasphemy and say that for me, weight is not the most important thing, but I still thought it'd be fun to compare the two. So there you have it. A quick fun look at the difference between my system from when I started YouTube to the current system that I have going on now. God only knows how it's going to change from here on out, but I'm sure it will. So how about you? Has your gear changed pretty significantly over the last 5 years, or are you one of those troopers that's using the same thing that they started out with this very day? Let me know in the comments below, and as always, keep hiking on.